Hi, my name is Dennis Seary. I am Executive Director and founder of the New York City Independent Film Festival, Independent in Spirit, International at Heart, and this is the New York City Independent Film Festival Meet the Filmmakers podcast. Join us while we meet this year's filmmakers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, hi, we're here today with Mairead. And hi, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Okay. Hi. Well, thanks for this opportunity to talk a little bit about my film. My name's Mairéad McClean. I'm originally from Northern Ireland, but I currently live over in the UK in a little city called Bath. The film that I'm going to be showing is called The Barking Mania, and it's a small short film that came out of a research period that I did. I was working as an artist in residence over in Dublin in Ireland. That was last year, and it was a decade of centenaries over there. And I was working with a group of people who were recreating an archive that was lost at the start of the Irish Civil War in 1922. So out of that material, they were looking at like material from medieval times and beforehand. And I, as an artist, was interested in searching through that material in a kind of different way. So I started to put it in search because we were doing this digitally and finding the material and putting it into the computer. And I started to do search words related to like sounds and to do with touch and feeling rather than, look historically. So in that, I came up with the word bark and barking. So I read the story of the Barking Mania. And from there, I started to do little drawings. Yeah. So from that, just exploration of, I recorded the song, I recorded me reading the story of the Barking Mania, which is it's from the annals of the Irish history in the 13th century. And then I did this very contemporary drawing, which was coming. So I was just trying to work as this material moves from the old books, and you'd have to go into an archive and find, who would find it. So now that you can search online, I sort of wanted to reflect that in how I interpreted the material. So I drew with my finger on the phone.
Very nice.
Yeah. So in terms of my own background and how I come to doing this, so I'm a visual artist predominantly, but I mostly work with film. I was making a larger film about my time with the archives and the digital archives. So the larger film took longer, took about 2 years. So just finishing that now. So these smaller ones I was doing as I went along, and I found about 3 or 4 little stories that I wanted to do like this. So this is the first one that I'll be showing, but I have a couple more that I want to finish, but it takes always longer than you think to finish.
Everything does.
Yeah.
All right. So, I guess the next question was, how long have you been doing this and how many films have you done?
Yeah.
Have you been making movies your whole life, or is this a new thing?
No, I've been making films for quite some time. I went to art college in London in the late 1980s, early 90s. And from then, I was working with photographs predominantly, but I started to tell stories about photographs and using slides, and then using Super 8, and then getting into film that way. And over the years, I probably made about 20 shorts. Yeah.
At least one long movie that you're working on now.
Yeah, this one I'm working on now is it's a like 30-minute film, 16mm film, and it's called Acts of Memory. So yeah, I'm hoping to get that out this year as well. But meantime, the short ones I'm sort of building up, and again, I might be able to have a whole program, of archive related material. I'm sort of hoping for something like that.
Oh, very nice. Okay, that's great. And okay, do you find that, all right, when you said you were going to do films, did you find your family and your friends going, what are you, crazy? Nobody makes a living making films. Go get a real job. Or did
Yeah.
you find everybody sitting there going, oh, great, I'm glad, I'm happy for you. Which way did it go for you?
Yeah, I think well, I'm from a big family in Northern Ireland. I'm one of 12 kids, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody was doing different things. You know, my brothers were working in the States, actually in New York, were working on the building construction in the 80s, 90s. My father was a teacher. So yeah, you know, there was encouragement, but they knew that it was going to be difficult. So I was always doing other bits and pieces of jobs, and then I doing some workshops and teaching, and you know, yeah, I didn't expect to make a living from it because I didn't want to work in the industry. You
Right.
know, I was sort of finding quieter ways to make films because I did try to work with a crew, and I made a short film with you know, the big crew and funding, but I didn't really like that experience because, and with actors, because I sort of found that I sort of lost my way. It was too nerve-wracking for me. And the type of person I am, I sort of just needed to keep it closer, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So the way that now I realize, I always thought, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But now I know there is no wrong way to
Right.
make films. And it totally depends on what suits you, your personality and your way of working, your so that's what's the learning in it, you know. And now, yeah, I say I taught for a long time at a university. Now I don't teach it and I'm making my own work. Um,
So
yeah,
you were a teacher.
I was
So
a
you had a day
university.
job.
I did have a day job, yeah, for good long time, 15 years.
Right.
But I thought, no, if you still want to make your work, make films and do more projects of your own, then drop the teaching, which is what I did. Yeah.
And you have a tribe, a group of filmmakers that you work with on a regular basis, group of people who your go-to people when you make a
Yeah.
movie.
Um, not um not really. I have a lot of people who are makers, and I will talk to them and we will discuss things. And with my recent bigger film, the 16 minute, I had people nearby here where I live who I worked with, and they are 16mm aficionados. I can shoot 16, but I needed them to work, you know, they were experts.
I haven't done a 16mm film in I think 55 years, literally.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm
I know,
actually
and
amazed.
you get completely out of practice if you're not doing it regularly. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the guy I worked with, James, he also was he hand processes film. So that was great. So the film was hand processed. So it was a lovely way of working, and I would definitely want to do more of that. But again, it costs money and it takes money, and yeah. And actually in the film here, Dennis, there's a wee bit of 16 because I drew all of this to say with my finger, and then afterwards I had a bit of 16mm film left, and I refilmed it off my
Okay.
iPad. Yeah, so there's a bit of that in at the end, which I just edited in
So
recently.
multimedia.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I guess what made you decide? I guess you already kind of answered that, but what made you decide to make this movie? Like, was it just looking at the archives and you went, "Oh wow, great," or did you, have some deeper cultural meaning? Like
Yeah.
almost all my Irish friends at this point in time, it seems to be a big resurgence in being Irish, and they're
Uh-huh.
all like trying to learn Gaelic and
Oh,
stuff.
really?
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny, I would never have made this film unless I'd stumbled across that little extract in the archives. I would never have thought of it. But
Mhm.
it also seemed sort of topical because at the beginning, you know, you don't, the way it's written, you know, the understanding that people had was that there was there was something spreading and they didn't know how it was spreading. So, you know, we can understand it now that it was something that was more likely to be an illness, you know, that you know, you could, but when you read that, you don't understand what it is. So it's like a hysteria, you know, think, what the hell is this?
Right,
So
right.
I thought that was really interesting as well, how our contemporary world, how we understand things, and then how 100 years ago, it's not that it was just the understanding was different, you know. They didn't have that way of understanding. So I just found that kind, just playing around with that, or understanding, and the fact that there are cyclical things, in world, and things come around again. And there was always contagion in some form or another coming. It was just that you didn't know where it came from. Yeah. So those kinds of things I think are interesting for me anyway.
All right. So I guess then my next question would be what was your hardest part and what was the most fun of making this movie?
I think the most fun was that it very quickly came together at the start. I just I drew it and I put my voice over, and I went, oh my God, this little story comes alive. It was really it was sort of a little magical thing. Yeah, so I really love that. I just love that little accident and magic, because sometimes that's what it takes in a film, just for it to because you don't know until you do it. I mean, because it can be all in your head, but I always say that when I was teaching, unless you get up and do it, everybody writes, oh, do this, but then in the doing it changes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And then the hard thing is always just finishing it. So you have it there and you go, well, how am I going to finish this? Is it finished? Am I going to add more? Am I doing this? So I find finishing hard. Yeah. And then getting it out is also hard, because you just don't know where it's going to land, who's going to like it, if it's going to suit somewhere, if it's not. I find that difficult. Yeah.
That makes
But
sense.
it is nice to be able to get it out and see it and get an audience. That's the most important part as well.
It is true. All right. And so I guess my next question is, are you happy? Like when you look at what you did, do you say, okay, that was a good accomplishment? Or you sit there and look at it and go, I should have done more. And I guess that question is more not necessarily about this one project, but about all your projects in general. Are you able to finish something and say, okay, I'm done? I mean, I can't do that. Every single time I look at anything I've ever done before, I'm always like, oh, I could have done that better. Maybe I should redo it. How do you feel?
Oh yeah, I'm probably similar in that I will change things if I can, right up until the last minute, and even I'll do other versions of the film if I can. I have done that. I have done that. Yeah, but with this, at least, I think I've realized as well, if I can do little bite-sized films and then make a longer film, and again, in the longer film I made is made up of 3 parts.
Right.
So that gives me a better way of managing, and because I think that's really important to know your limitations, and I'm beginning to understand mine.
That makes sense. Okay. And all right, the next question is for the indie world in general.
Yeah.
So in a lot of careers, a lot of cultures, what is successful is a large number inside of a checking account. That doesn't happen in the indie film. So what would you consider to be success in the indie film?
That's a good question. I think getting feedback from, even if it's a small group of people, that's you've reached out and you have connected with them. And I think that's really important, because not everybody is going to respond to the same things, and not everybody is going to want to watch a blockbuster, and not every, so the more multi-varied kind of ways of making films I find really interesting, just how people do it. I love that, and I think there are audiences for that, for the many different films that. So indie is such a broad term, but I think so but everything can fit in that, which is great.
I love when somebody uses Martin Scorsese as an indie filmmaker. It's like, well, I wish I was that indie.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if somebody came to you, a young person came to you and said, hi, I'm going to start making indie films, what would you be their advice? What would be the first thing that would come to mind you would tell them?
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would say this. You do have to find your own voice, and that's hard, because initially, certainly when I was working with young students, they thought they had a voice, but it was very, very hard to see what would make them different, you know, because they were following very closely, say, films they've seen, filmmakers they've watched, you know, other directors. So it's just really thinking about that and believing that you do have something that's different, that you can present something that's different. It may not even be super visible in the early days, but the more you work and the more you practice, it will appear, you know, it will appear, because you will, like, again, all the mistakes that I've made over the years and going towards bigger filmmaking and going, I can't do that. That's just not me. And then going back to smaller ways of making and finding I can get closer to the voice, you know, to the voice I want to use in the films. So I think that's one of the big lessons for me is just beginning to trust. I mean, I think it comes out of, certainly for me, it was always like not having enough confidence or not knowing, you know, not thinking what I had to say was of relevance or of any importance. All of that, you know, coming out of a small village in Northern Ireland and, you know, thinking, well, there's only, you know, people only know about this place because of the Troubles, or people only know about this, you know, more stereotypical. So sort of trying to get around that and trying to find other ways of showing people what you see from your own eyes, you know, and from your own. So the way I do, again, I feel is you know, use the texture, use the, you know, use the sound, use it. I love the work that I do with sound in the film. So that's how I would, yeah, I think that's what I would talk to students about, or people coming to it fresh.
All right, great. I guess now we're at the final words. Is there anything you want to say? What I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to throw in the fact that the Barking Mania shows at the New York City Independent Film Festival, June 6th at 8:45 p.m. So do come. But now, any last words you want to say? Anything you want to ask? Anything?
Yeah, no, it's great to get an opportunity to show this little film over in New York, and I have cousins over there and people who I can connect with, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit of feedback, and I hope it all goes really well for all the filmmakers and the festival in general. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.